committee that's working with the outreach committee. We're working tirelessly in the civic life of our community to make a difference in promoting the quality of life in the community through both the political and non-political process. Mr. Bruce Sherbert, he's the election administrator of Collin County. He has come here to give us some valuable information about the mechanism of voting, how it's done. To give a brief synopsis of his past experience, he's currently in the Collin County Election Department from 2015 to present. He was Ellis County Election Department. He was there before 2014 to 15. His career started in 1984 to 87 when he was Assistant Election Administrator and Voter Registration Supervisor. And he's also giving a course developer instruction in the Election Center, National Association of Election Officials from 2011 to 2014. He currently resides in Richardson. Mr. Bruce Spencer, please come forward. Thank you.
Brothers, inshallah, so we're going to have the sisters coming into the main hall, inshallah. So I request you all to come on this side. And someone, Brother Mohsen, can you extend the partition, please, if you don't mind. All the brothers, come on the other side after you're done with the sunnah. And he can use the headphone. You want me?
Is this right?
Yeah. We're going to just wait for a couple more minutes, just for the young brother to finish his salah, inshallah. And then we're going to invite the sisters to come in the main hall. All the sisters, please join us in the main hall. Sajjad, Brother Sajjad, can you extend this partition? Sure, that's it. Sisters, you're welcome to join us in the main hall, inshallah. Please join in. We're going to get started. Jazakallah khair.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hi. I've been the elections administrator for over 30 years, just 3 different counties. So when I was preparing today to talk about elections, give you just an overview of the process. So I have to keep in mind, some people may not be registered to vote yet. Some people may not have ever voted yet. So I want to give you just kind of a broad perspective of how the process works. And then I will give you specific information about this upcoming election so that if you're voting, you'll know what the process is. So I hope that by the time I finish today, you have a very good oversight of the process as we go forward. So let's just go ahead and start with, what about the election dates? What are the election dates that we hold elections in this state? There are 2 uniform election dates. Those 2 uniform election dates, there's one in May, and the one in May is for mostly like cities and school districts, municipalities, water districts, local elections basically. Then the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November is what we call the general election. It's the election that we elect on even years, and this is an even year, our federal, our state, our county officials. We even have some local elections on this upcoming ballot too. Now we also have primary elections, and primary elections are held in March of even years. Primary elections are basically the process of elimination of both major political parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, of choosing the candidate that they wish to be on the November general election. We don't only have just 2 parties. You know, we have what we call third parties also. You've heard of Libertarian Party, or there's a Green Party. There's also independent candidates. But the third party candidates, they're elected through a convention in the summer. March is when the primaries of even years are. November of odd year elections are like constitutional amendments, state constitutional amendment elections that our legislature passes through their legislative action. There are really just two main steps for the voting process. They've been like this for as long as I can remember, and I've been doing this for about 35 years. Registering to vote. All of our states except one, North Dakota, requires a registration to vote process. And then the voting process. You can't get to the voting process until you first go through the registration process. So we'll start there. Registration, qualifications for registration. United States citizen, either born or naturalized. It also requires that if you're registering to vote, you register in the county where you reside. If you reside in Dallas County, that's where you would register, Collin County, and so forth. You have to be at least 18 years of age. Now, young folks can register when they're 17 and 10 months old, but they can't vote until at least they're 18 years of age. Two other caveats: if there's a felony conviction, you can't register until whatever that matter has been resolved, probation, parole, whatever sentence was been issued on that. And then if a court has deemed someone mentally incapacitated, which is a very rare occurrence, but it happens, those are the only two prohibitions for the registration process. Otherwise, the first three things are all that's necessary. Registration cutoff period is always 30 days before the election. But once you register to vote, you don't have to re-register again. It just stays current from then on. The only thing you need to know is if you have registered to vote and you have moved to a different address, you need to update the record so that our registration update is correct, so that you don't possibly get purged down the road whenever we mail out new voter cards every 2 years. So you never have to register more than once, but once you do, if you move, just make sure you change your address so that you don't risk getting deleted from the record later down the road. The cutoff for voter registration, if you've not registered before, for this upcoming November 6th election is October 9th. And when I say October 9th, it just has to be postmarked, your registration application, when you turn it in. Registration applications are available all over the place. You can print them off of our website at Collin County Elections. And I have an address for you here a little bit later. We have deputy registrars. Andy's a deputy registrar from our place here. We have 1,000 of them in this county, in Collin County. Deputy registrars are like agents for our office, where they can go and register people, help them fill out the cards, bring them back, and hand them in person. You can get registration applications at post offices, at libraries. We'll mail you one if you'd like. It's a very simple process. You just put your information on there. If you have a driver's license or an ID number, it goes on there. If you don't, if you have the last 4 digits of your social that you can put on there. And if you have neither one of those, there's a box on there to check, I don't have either one of those too. And then it's just signed. Okay, for voting, there are 3 different methods for voting in our processes. Early voting. Early voting is like an advanced opportunity to vote. It starts about 15, 16 days before the election. It ends 4 days before the election. It's a very popular form of voting. In the last presidential election, 83% of our voters in Collin County opted to vote early in one of the 12 days of early voting. There are 12 days of early voting, 6 of which are 12-hour days, including a Saturday, including a Sunday. So there are lots of opportunities for those of us that are too busy to set aside election day. Then you have lots of other opportunities through that early voting process. Election day is the other opportunity to vote. And then finally, absentee by mail. Absentee by mail is where you're voting a ballot that has been mailed to you and you're sending it in back through the mail process. It's a process that we call restricted, meaning certain people qualify to vote by mail. And I'm going to go over each one of these in some detail here. Let's talk about early voting. Early voting, in this election, for example, we have 33 locations for early voting in Collin County. Dallas County has, probably roughly the same number, maybe even 40 or 50, because it's larger than Collin County is in registration. You can just pick whatever location that you want to vote, whatever is convenient. You don't have to go to a designated location. Just pick whichever one during that early voting period and go to. Our dates for the November 6th election for early voting are October 22nd to November 2nd. Those are the early voting dates for voting. And we have a list of the locations you can see here. They're also on our website. That you can look up and find one that's the closest to you. The bottom of the list here will tell you what hours that we're open at each one of those locations that we have for early voting. Now, Election Day. Election Day in Collin County is a very easy process because you can pick any one of the 63 Election Day vote centers. There are two different kinds of Election Day voting locations in our state. One type, which is used probably by a couple hundred, we have 254 counties, by probably close to 200 counties on Election Day. You have to go to a designated location if you wait to vote Election Day. You can't just pick one of the locations. But Collin County has a model called Vote Center. And Vote Center means you just simply pick one of our 63 locations on Election Day and you just go vote, because we'll have the database for all the registered voters at each one of those locations. Now, if you live in Dallas County, or you live in Tarrant County, or you live in Denton County, or one of the other 200 counties in the state other than Collin County, then you'll go to a designated location, and that information will be on their website. If you went to one of the other locations on Election Day, they wouldn't have you on the record to be able to vote at that location because you're supposed to vote at a specific location. Now, we have something, and I know Dallas and Tarrant also has this kind of thing, Denton County, but we post on our website a map of all the locations in Collin County. Now, you can see there are three different colors. There's a green, there's a yellow, there's a red. Now, this is a very helpful map for you, especially in the big high turnout elections, because if you look on our website at any time during the voting process, that's early voting or Election Day, if it's green, the color of the dot, that means your wait time once you get to the location to vote is less than 20 minutes. If it's yellow, it indicates to you it's between 20 and 40 minutes. If it's red, it means it's over 40 minutes. So you can see as you're looking at a map, I would rather go to a green location if it's right next to a red, because I'll be able to vote and get in and out very quickly in the process. We also have the ability for you to click on it and it'll give you directions of how to get to the location if it's an area that you're not familiar with. The third method of voting is absentee by mail. I said earlier it's restricted. It's restricted because there are three reasons primarily that you can vote early voting by mail. One is you're going to be out of the county. You're going to be out of the county not just during the early voting period of 12 days, but also Election Day. We can mail a ballot to you anywhere you tell us to mail the ballot to if you're in that situation where you're not in the county during the voting process. You just simply mark it and mail it back to us. Anyone over 65 years of age is entitled to vote by mail just because they're over 65 years of age, and we'll mail them a ballot. And then also anyone that is disabled or sick. And there's no qualification where you have to have a doctor's certificate or some proof of that. If you check it, it is taken on face value that you are not able to vote because of a disability. Now, there's a box on that application to check that's called annual. So if you qualify to vote absentee and you check the box that says annual, every single election we hold that year that you're eligible to vote, we'll just automatically mail you a ballot. So, for example, if you've done that in January of this year, we would have mailed you a primary ballot. We would have mailed you a May ballot. We would have mailed you if there was a runoff election from the May election. We would have mailed you a ballot for that throughout the year. It's a very simple process, and especially as busy as some of us are, it's just it's an easy process if you qualify for that. Now, the cutoff for requesting a mail ballot is October 26th for the November 6th election. And that has to be received in hand. And the mail ballot applications look just like this. And I'm leaving today on the table here a stack of voter registration applications, and I know Andy is a deputy registrar. He can help you too through this process. And also some absentee applications. So you may have a relative or someone that you want to assist with this process, and you certainly can do so in that regard. So let's talk about what's on the ballot. What's on the ballot for this upcoming November 6th election? We have federal offices. We have state offices. We have county offices. Collin County is holding a bond election, a $750 million bond election. That's on the ballot too. We have about a dozen local cities and school districts. Most cities and school districts hold their elections in May, but some have opted to hold them in November. So you'll see those on the ballot. So if you go to our website, or any county that you live in, the website, you'll be able to look at the ballots. The way that you'll know what your ballot is in Collin County, you put your information in, it'll be your name and birth date, and it'll be able to pull up to say, if you're a registered vote, this is your specific ballot style. Now, why is that? Because when you register to vote, you are registered at an address, and that address is in what we call a voting precinct. And that voting precinct entitles you to vote on certain representatives that are in that district, your precinct and district of that. So what I'm showing you up here is just what we call a generic ballot. It shows all of the different things that we're voting in November. You would only be voting for the ones that pertain to where you're registered to vote. You can't vote in 3 congressional districts. You're only voting in 1 that pertains to where you're registered. Or 2 Senate districts. No, you're only voting in 1 state representative district. So I have the ballot here. You'll see the very first thing on the ballot is something called straight party voting. Now, this November 6th is the last election we're going to have straight party voting. The legislature last session decided to do what 40 other states have done and eliminated the option to vote straight party. What straight party means is a convenient way of voting, where if you're primarily voting one party, then if you shade in the oval, for example, if you're voting by mail, I'll show you what it looks like on the machine in just a second. It will give you votes for every single candidate on the ballot for that party that you shaded in. But there's a process that you can crossover vote, because say you want to vote 90% of the candidates you're voting for are one party's candidates, but 10% are the other party's candidates. Anywhere on the ballot, you can just override that straight party vote by just shading in a party candidate of the other party. So that gives you the ability to kind of more quickly vote your ballot than the individually. These are very long ballots. There are probably 50 different offices if you count the state and the county level and the federal level. So this is here on our website. You can also drill down and see specifically your ballot that you want to vote, that you will be voting if you're voting in November 6th. All right, polling place. Let's talk about polling places. Almost all the polling places are set up exactly the same kind of way. Polling places, there are really 2 stations in a polling place, 2 primary stations. And this is how it's going to work in our county, but it will work this way in other counties too, especially Dallas, Tarrant, Denton counties from around here. First thing you see is like what we call the qualifying table. Qualifying table is where they look you up to see if you're registered to vote. Then they know what type of ballot that you're entitled to vote based on your voter registration record. So that'll be the first thing you see. Collin County, we have laptops, and in our locations, our busy locations, we may have 5 different setups. And you just pick one of the lines to go and stand in, and they'll look you up. If you have a driver's license or an ID, they can even just scan that in, and it pulls your record up because that information is in the database. Or they can just type in your name, and it will pull it up through our database. We have 560,000 registered voters in Collin County. Collin County is the fastest growing county in this state, basically, one of the fastest in this nation. And projections are in 2050 we'll be bigger than Dallas County or Tarrant County. That's how fast this county is growing. So they'll look you up, and what they do at that point, they'll ask you for an ID if you have not provided one. Now, there are 2 processes for ID. Our law currently requires a photo ID, but there is an exception to that rule. So we'll go with the photo ID requirement first, and then I'll tell you about the exception. There's 7 forms of ID that are allowed. Most people will show just a driver's license or an ID card, a state ID card. But there could be any of these others that would be acceptable forms of photo ID. If the person at the polling place doesn't have a photo ID and they had a reasonable impediment from getting one of those photo IDs, all you have to do is fill out a form. It's called a Reasonable Impediment Declaration, RID. And when you fill that out, then you could show one of the other forms of non-photo ID. Could be a utility bill, could be your voter certificate. When you register to vote, we send you a voter certificate by mail showing that you're a registered voter. That's not required to present, but if you don't have a photo ID and a reasonable impediment to get one, then you could show that, or any of these other things, paycheck or any of these other type of government documents. Now, once you've done that, the person at that qualifying table will print a label, and that label will have the voter's name on it, address, and the ballot style that voter's entitled to vote. In this November 6th election, we have 64 different ballot styles, and every registered voter is assigned a ballot style based on where their residence address is, where they're registered to vote. The clerk will put that on what we call a combination form. They'll just stick it on there, and the voter signs the label at that point. The clerk also will print the voter's name on what we call a poll list. The reason that's important is because we have to account for all the votes. If, for example, I have 100 stickers on the sticker sheet with the combination form and 100 names printed on here, then I'm sure hoping I have 100 votes on the machine. Because if I had 200 votes on the machine and 100 names, then that's not going to match, and we realize that we have a discrepancy. So it's just a part of our check and balance, and it's duplicated for redundancy purposes just to make sure. Once that's done, they print the name on there, the clerk at that station will take an encoder card. This is a ballot encoder card. They'll put it in a machine that looks just like the voting machine, but it's called an encoder. And from there, as you can see, there are a list of precincts. They will select whatever that ballot style is that the voter is entitled to vote, because we vote electronically in Collin County at this moment. So once that is done, it will eject the card, and on that card will only be the ballot. None of the voter's information is on there. It never stores vote totals on the card. The card is only used for the purpose of identifying the correct ballot for the voter at the voting machine. The voter then goes to the voting machine and inserts the card, the same card that was encoded with their ballot. That gets inserted in the voting machine, and then the voting machine will pull up the ballot that is specific for that voter, that registered voter. You'll see on the ballot you see up here, the first thing you see is straight party. If you touched one of the parties, it would highlight every candidate of that party on the ballot. And there are probably about 15 different screens that you go through in this voting process for this election, because it's just such a big ballot that we have. So when you look at our ballot on the screen, think of it like reading a book. You turn a page on reading the book, so when you vote a screen, at the bottom of it, you see where it says next. That means you push next, and then it just takes you to the next page, and then to the next page. Even if you voted straight party, remember what I said earlier, you could go and vote for any other party's candidates, and it would give you your override for that particular one you told it to override, but everything else would remain the same. Once you go through the full ballot, which I say is about 15 screens, then you'll see what we call a summary page. Summary page is the last stop for the voter to see, here is what I did on my whole ballot. These are the ones I voted for. If you disagree or change your mind, all you have to do is touch this, whichever one you want to touch on this screen, and it'll take you right back into the ballot so you can make whatever change and then go back to your summary screen. Once you have finished that process, then all you have to do is touch Cast Ballot, which is at the bottom right. When you touch Cast Ballot, then that card, that encoder card with your ballot, it ejects. And then you take it from the machine and you put it and deposit it on your way out. That whole process, the qualifying process, could take as short as a period of 30 seconds. Your voting might take several minutes because you go through a lot of screens, but it is a faster process than you would imagine. And then on your way out, all you simply do is drop the card. Remember, no votes are stored on the card. The card was only used for your ballot identification. So that was my presentation. I know I've used my 20 minutes up, so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Is that the same process for Dallas County?
Dallas County would be the same process for Dallas County. Dallas has a different looking electronic voting machine for early voting. In Dallas County on election day, you would vote just like the mail ballot. You shade in the oval next to your choices. Collin County will have a new voting system next year, probably November of next year. We're in the final processes, and it will have a paper component so voters can not just vote on the screen, but it'll print their ballot out for verification purposes.
The website that you have, that shows Dallas County offices also? Or?
No, the website that we have, and the question was, will our website show Dallas County or Denton or Tarrant? No, you'd have to go in, and all you have to do in Google or just whatever you search engine, just put in Collin County Elections Department or Dallas County Elections Department or Tarrant. It will take you straight to there. Our page, their pages are almost identical. We show you all the ballot. We show you the locations for voting. We give you voter registration information, absentee. It's a very good website to give you information about the process. And we're nonpartisan, so if you wanted specific information on candidates, for example, you would want to go to one of two ways to do it. You know, there are voter guides that come out. The newspapers will have voter guides that give all the candidates' positions. Each candidate has their own website that tells you what they support or oppose. And then also the parties, political parties do the same thing. They'll sometimes link you over to the candidate's website. And then, of course, you know, we have debates going on now. We had one last night. So those are always good ways to get information about the candidates so that you'll know if they are supporting or opposing things that you need to know about.
Any other questions? Can you step up here so that we...
I've got one question. Can we choose any location particular for the voting or only prescribed location?
For Collin County, if you lived in Collin County, you can pick any location you want. That's early voting and election day. If you live in Dallas, or you live in Denton, or if you live in Tarrant County, you have to go to a specific location on election day.
So this means it's based on the county to county?
It's county to county, and each county decides if they want to be traditional. Traditional is where you have to go to a specific location, or we have vote centers where you can just pick whatever location you want, whatever's convenient for you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
How soon and how early can we log into the system to check whether it is working for me, or do I have to learn anything to get acquainted with the system rather?
I'm sorry, what was?
How early or how soon we can log into the system to check?
Oh,
To get acquainted with the system, to get a handle on the system. There's 15 pages and all that, right?
Yes,
Is there
yes,
some
we-
learning tutorial over there or something?
we have tutorials and step-by-step. We are working on a video process that will be very interactive where you can walk through the process. But every county, not just our county, every county will have a tutorial on their website to walk you through the process. And if we don't have it, we'll have a link where you can just click on it and it will take you to where you need to go to get, for example, state information. If it's like a constitutional amendment election where you want to get more information about the ballot, you can do it that way. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Bruce, thank you very much for a very lucid presentation. I have an observation, and I want to see whether you would agree with that. 1 year, I had gone for a voting location, and unfortunately, the system was down. Systems sometimes go down, and I work in IT. So I had the voter registration card with me, and that was helpful over and above the ID, because the lady could say, okay, then I could go ahead and vote, because I had the voter registration card. I think there are probably some number she was looking for. So if that observation is correct, as a safety, taking the voter registration card with you over and above an ID may be helpful in case the system is down.
That's a very good point. Now, the way our systems work, well, the one we have for sure, we have a database that's loaded onto our laptops, but it also is interactive with our mainframe database so that if you vote, then it immediately records the vote. If that goes down, if we lose our line, then we go offline and we can still process. But what you're saying is absolutely true. Your voter certificate has a unique identifier number just for you. So that would help a person if the system was down and they were having problems searching the system. Or even take it this way. What if they were doing the data entry on your voter application and they misspelled your name? So they go in and they're looking at the correct spelling, but it's not pulling something up. But if you had your voter certificate with the number on it, then that would get them straight to your record. So that's a very good suggestion.
When you say voter certificate, it is actually the voter ID card, which is a kind of a yellow color.
It's yellow, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we mail, when you register the vote, within usually 2 weeks after you register the vote, we send you that voter certificate, and it's yellow and white, and it'll just have your name and specific information on it. Every 2 years, we mail a new one. So once you register, you don't have to register again, but we'll mail you a updated that voter certificate every 2 years. And that's why I said, be sure and have your current address on there, because those are non-forwardable. When we mail them out, they go to the registration address that you direct us. If they come back, then we put it in a suspense file for 2 federal elections, and then it might be purged if you don't update your record.
One final observation, and I'll shut up. On that voter registration card, your districts are also listed. So if you are not sure which House district you are in Texas, for example, I'm in House District 67, and also House of Representative, which district, which Senate district, all those are listed in your voter registration card, because otherwise it is difficult to figure out where exactly, which position you are supposed to vote for.
That's very correct. And also it'll take you all the way down to your city council district, and it'll take you to your school district. So it's federal all the way through. It's on the right-hand side of your voter certificate. All the district information pertains to the voter, yes.
Sisters, I'm sure you have a few questions. Please go ahead if you have any questions. I guess the sisters understand the process much better than we do. We'll take one last question and then we'll wrap.
Thank you, sir, for coming in. I have a question. I just moved to the county like a month ago from out of state. Am I eligible to vote?
Yes, you are. In fact, the day you move here, you can register that day. And it's eligible for voting 30 days from the date that you have been postmarked on that application. Or if Andy, for example, were to take it the day that you submit that to a registrar, volunteer deputy registrar, so there's no waiting period. You can register immediately.
Yeah, I just moved a month ago. Is that okay?
Oh, sure.
No problem. And then can I show my old driver license? I have an Oklahoma state license. I don't have a Texas license.
If you don't have your Texas one yet, yes, you could. If that is an acceptable form of photo ID if you're using a reasonable impediment declaration. But when you get your current driver's license, whenever that time will be, then that would be the one that you submit as your photo ID. But it is acceptable. If you don't have one of those 7 forms of photo ID and you're registered to vote, when you go vote, all you have to do is do the reasonable impediment declaration if you've had a reasonable impediment from getting one of the 7 IDs, and show that out-of-state driver's license.
And the passport will work with a different address?
Passport would work, absolutely. Now, and I'm glad you put it this way. When you're showing ID, it's not to verify address. They can't even question the address on whatever that ID is. It is to show identification. So your passport would absolutely be fine, no matter if the address was different.
And it doesn't matter if I rent or I own a place here in the Collin County. If I'm living over here for a certain period of time, I can vote, or I can vote right now.
You could vote as soon as you get registered, as long as, and what I said earlier, where your residence address, so wherever you're living. And there's no definition. It has to be a certain type of residence, wherever you sleep at night, basically. Mm-hmm. Some people at their businesses, they have a place where they sleep even. We have 560,000, we have every scenario you can imagine. But as long as you have a residence, established in Collin County that you call your residence, that's going to be where you register to vote, and you can vote 30 days from the date we receive that. And just do it before October 9 if you're wanting to vote, because that is the deadline.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Hi, thank you for coming. Question is there an online way you can check the registration status if you're actually registered or not?
Yes, there are two ways. If you want to check online your status of registration, you can go on our website, and Dallas has it the same way, and then all of the larger counties have this opportunity where you can put your information in and it will say, yes, you're registered or it's current. It'll give you the district information. It'll give you the sample ballot of what you're going to be voting. If you have any problem doing that, just call our office, and we can look it up over the phone. It's very simple to check the registration. And I would encourage anyone here, if you think that, well, I don't know if I changed my address, I'm not sure if it's still current, just call and check. That way you know you have until October 9th right now to change an address or get something corrected or updated on it so you don't miss the opportunity.
Okay, I just have a second question. U.S. citizens living abroad, how would they vote?
What's that?
U.S. citizens, they live abroad.
Overseas.
Yeah,
Let me address that too. Yes, overseas, exactly the same as absentee by mail. There's a process called federal postcard application, or it even can be an informal type of application. But we start mailing out ballots for our overseas by federal law at least 45 days before the election, because it's hard to get ballots some places that we're mailing to. So absolutely, as long as you're registered to vote, it doesn't matter where you are, you can request a ballot. Overseas ballots, there are some other opportunities because we have, for military, for example, opportunities to email ballots back and forth because it's just too difficult to get the ballots through a regular mail-out process. And all of that is on our website. We have a whole section that identifies those procedures for that, for individuals. And I forgot to say one other thing about voting. If you go in to vote, they can't find your name on the record. They've looked. You do have an opportunity to vote a ballot called a provisional ballot. Provisional ballots, think of it like a safety net under the voter that they might have fallen through the cracks somehow. There might have been some kind of a data error or something like that. Provisional ballots, they don't count immediately. After the election, a ballot board will research and see if there was a technical error, whatever the problem was, and if there was reason to believe that person's entitled to vote, the ballot board could say, count the provisional ballot. Or if they see the person just is not registered or was deleted years ago, then they can say, decline the provisional ballot. But no one should have to walk away from a polling place if they feel they are qualified to vote. Even if they can't find, it would be a provisional ballot. It's a little bit more paperwork, but it takes maybe a couple minutes longer, and you can vote provisional. Okay.
Thank you.
So we're going to take the last question, inshallah. So make it quick, inshallah, so that way we can go eat.
Thank you for coming, Bruce. Quick question. Beside being just, being citizens and voting in the election process, how can we become an active members in the election process? Like, how do you become a VDR, or how do you become a polling agent? Could you kind of shed light on that, please?
Absolutely. There are several things you can do to be involved. For a VDR, we have over 1,000 of them, and they're very important extensions of our office because they go out and register people to vote, help people get registered to vote that might not understand the process. That's literally coming to our office and taking a very short course, and I mean an hour, whatever. Andy, how long did it take you? Okay, half an hour. It's just filling out paperwork, and then you're authorized. You have a number assigned to you. If you're a volunteer deputy registrar, if you want to work in a polling place, both the parties have recommendations that they give to the county, and it's not just the two main parties. Third parties have that same opportunity. There's a process that we go through. We're always looking for clerks, always looking for people to assist in the election process. It's hard to find people. We're all so busy, and especially for election day processes. So contact our office or contact the political parties. They'll get the name on the list, and that comes to us through that vehicle as well. Candidates always, If you have a candidate that you like and want to support, they always could use help for people to help put out signs or stand at polling places. There are opportunities all the way across the board. It only simply is a phone call, basically, to get started on the process.
Thank you so much. Yes, you have a question, sister. Go.
Thank you very much for coming and explaining everything for us. So please end with a few lines like how important each and every individual to vote, their vote counts and how important it is. Then we can encourage people to vote, inshallah.
That is very true. And people ask me all the time, well, why don't people vote? And I don't think there's one reason. I think it could be several different reasons. They just get too busy, or they don't think their vote will make a difference. I'm here to tell you, I've seen more than one election won by one vote. I've seen elections that have been won with tens of thousands of votes by 4 or 5 votes. Every vote counts, and what you don't realize when you talk about voting, the major elections that we hold, the November elections, those are very important, but you can't imagine how important the local elections are to you. That is, everything your day-to-day life, locally, your cities and school districts, how your children are educated, how your garbage is picked up, how your city, your water supplies are clean. All of those things, police, everything, really are at the local level for the most part on our day-to-day lives when you look at it. So don't just vote in a November election, which are very, very important. But those local elections are equally important to us in a different way. So voting is important, and it's something that we don't want to lose focus of. And thank you all very much. Y'all been very good. Thank you.
So, first of all, thank you so much, Bruce. It was very informative. So just bear with us for 5 more minutes. Just 5 more minutes. Now I'm going to invite our Amir, our President, Brother Javed Isa, to present a plaque to Mr. Bruce on behalf of EPIC. So Javed Bhai, can you please join us and say a few words, inshallah, closing. So hold on one second, Bruce, before you go. Okay. So there is voter registration tables outside. If you have not registered, please see the booth, and you can register yourself today. I think just as an action item from this beautiful informative session today. So I'm going to have Jadbhai present. Mr. Muzaffar, do you have? So this is a small token of appreciation to Bruce. So thank you so much, Bruce, for coming. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to have Jadbhai, if you can say in closing, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Thank you very much, Mr. Bruce, for taking the time to come to our community. I thank the community as well, mashallah. It's a good response here. That shows that we care, and we do care. Also, I want to thank you, our outreach committee, subcommittee, which is the civic engagement subcommittee of the outreach committee, who have put together this program for us. Thank you very much, Jazakallah khair. I think everything been said here, why it is important. I remember back in days when I came as a student in this country, many, many years ago, I was whining about something, and somebody told me, when you get to the point, make sure that you register and you vote, because if you don't vote, you can't complain. So that's how I'm going to close. Thank you very much. I think we still have some more programs for our Hujjaj who came back this year, and as well as we also have Ansar program, and we'll have lunch over there. If I'm missing something out, you want to say something? So I would request everyone to 5 minutes. We can go there, inshallah. So I request all of you to please follow to the multipurpose hall, and inshallah we'll have some. I'm sorry this is a late lunch, but it's going to be a lunch, inshallah. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.